Hello, hello. I'm not sure if we're live yet. Just checking, just checking. Heading over to YouTube, view channel. We are live indeed. Yes, we are. So there we are. Hello, everyone out there in the lands, wherever you are. We are doing a U talk. I'm very excited about this. I've got to turn that off. Sorry about that. Um, and I'm about to hit record in just 1 minute. So let me hop back on over to the other app. Lots of apps to hop to, and we are hitting record. Okay, hello, welcome everyone to U Talk at the U Movement. I am B, and tonight we have a special interview that I am most excited about out of all of my interviews because this is my bestie. She also is going through her own intense awakening. And so we have been side by side, observing, supporting, and counseling each other, co-counseling each other through our awakenings. So this is a very exciting interview for me. I know she has a lot to share that will be very useful to everyone out there. So without further ado, welcome, Julia.
Hi, B. Thank you very much for having me here.
I'm delighted. Before we begin, I want to give the viewers a little bit of a background into who you were before your awakening.
I was definitely, oh my God, how can I put this? I want to say a weirdo, but maybe maybe it will come across as unkind. I very much owe my weirdness. So to put it kindly, I would say I was the outlier. Um, I've always felt different, and I'm not saying I'm not different anymore today. It's just that I have a better idea of who I am now. I'm not saying I fully get a grasp on everything, but I have a little more knowledge as to who I am now. But yes, back then I was definitely someone who stood out, um, be it because of my beliefs or what interests me in life or the way I relate to people. Um, so yes, I was that.
And how would you compare yourself now to that person you once were?
I would say I I no longer see my weirdness as something that's a flaw or something that is bad. Um, I recently came to realize that maybe I'm not weird or broken. I think that's what's happening is some neurospiciness along with a little magic. So I no longer see myself as, well, of course I'm flawed, but what I mean is the way I'm different, I no longer understand it as something that's um, something I should change. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So your perception of who you are has changed from being a negative interpretation to some of your qualities to now a much more accepting or positive, a level of awareness has come in on who you are. And what has that process been like for you to change that perception?
Oh my God, that was hell. That was hell. Um, where do I start? There's so much to say. I'm not sure what's relevant, but it's certainly been very hard to come to that point. Lots of losses, lots of self discovery. Um, I basically had to come to a point where I just couldn't bother with everything anymore. Like I pretty much hit rock bottom at some point, and I no longer had any energy to put into worrying what others might think of me, or I had to learn the hard way. Yeah.
Yes. So what triggered your awakening?
I'm not sure what triggered it because it came in many stages, And at none of those points did I think, oh my God, this is a spiritual awakening. In retrospect, maybe I can, because obviously I'm on a spiritual path now. But the stages per se, I didn't tell myself, oh, yes, I'm awakening. Just things happened and they put me on the path that I'm in today. Um, one of the phase, well, it was maybe a preparatory phase. I have an impressive collection of trauma. So I've had a very difficult life, many traumatic events, which I'm not willing to go into, but I believe that was some kind of preparation. Um,
Yes.
and then the rock bottom I was addressing earlier, which made me um, fall on my knees and ask Jesus, of all people, to help me. So yeah, I found Jesus again much later in life, which was a little bit concerning for people who knew me, because I used to be very angry at religion, especially Christianity, because that's how I've been brought up. And I've always been very big about inclusivity, equality, and I've seen so much suffering, um, so much exclusion in the name of religious beliefs. And so, for example, discrimination towards women. Um, I was 10 years old and I couldn't comprehend why, as a woman, I couldn't be a priest, for example. And I wasn't interested in any of this. I thought, if I'm not welcome to be a priest if I want to, then what business do I have here? And later in life, as a teenager, I had friends from the LGBT um, community, which didn't have a name back then, because this is how old I am. And so being gay, or, you know, any orientation or sexual identity that was not the norm, was especially hard in the small town I lived in. And I've seen close friends praying that God heals them as if they were sick, and that was sickening to me. So yeah, I'm going on a tangent here about how I didn't like anything religious, but at some point I struggled so hard that I had to put all of this, um, like none of this was relevant anymore. I needed something bigger than I. And so I think that's really where that's the moment when it began, I think. Um, so yeah, finding Jesus was a biggie. um, Another thing, I'm not sure I'm going to talk about this. Um, do I talk about this or don't I talk about this?
You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's totally open to direct it where you need to go.
I promised I wouldn't talk about twin flames, but I feel like I should. So yeah, twin flames. First of all, I want to say I hate the label. I hate the term, but I still need to address this because there was some there was a connection with a person which fits the bill a little, even though I don't like labels. And I feel like the twin flame term should come with a caveat, because I don't like what it stands for. I believe that as a label, it is an attempt to explain a phenomenon that some people go through in their lives. But it has become kind of a buzzword or a trend, and it's been so romanticized. I think it's become really harmful. And so I don't pretend I'm those twin flame self-proclaimed experts or anything, but I've had a connection in my life that both brought me to life and destroyed me at the same time. So that's I believe the biggest factor in that awakening. It was that, for lack of a better term, connection with that person that was a big catalyst in that whole thing.
Well, I think you described it perfectly. I actually haven't heard a better description, in that it both brought you to life and it also destroyed you. Because in the process of awakening, it is a total self-destruction.
Yes.
Can you describe some of the phases that you recognize as going through on your awakening? You know, that destruction phase, and maybe that brought you to life phase. You know, can you see differences in time periods where certain things happened on your awakening?
Well, it's kind of fuzzy, like I said, because I'm not sure exactly when's this, the starting point. I'm not sure exactly where it started, but there was definitely a conflict aspect of it. I've been like, when I began understanding what was going on, that something spiritual might be at play, then I was conflicted about it, because I am a person who's extremely emotional, but at the same time, I am also very pragmatic, very matter of fact, very down to earth. And so I need to understand things. I need to go to the bottom of things. I need to understand why things happen the way they do. And when it's something spiritual, then there's no certitude, there's no proof, you cannot be comforted by um, some equations or a recipe or explanation, something logic, something concrete. You can't. You don't have that. So I was conflicted at first. um, so that was I believe that the first phase, if I can call it that, was I was conflicted. How can I um how can I be both very pragmatic and so woo woo out there, how can I how can I always make the experience valid if there's no
Yes.
proof, you
I
know?
like that though, because you're kind of opening yourself to looking at yourself through duality, of seeing that I'm both things. I'm not just one thing anymore. I'm both ends of the same spectrum, which is kind of collapses a paradigm in that. Oh, we've frozen. Hopefully you come back to being not frozen in a second. While she's frozen here, and hopefully we'll reboot in a minute. Uh, I've noticed in my own awakening many times over that we come to a place of we've got you see both sides of the spectrum at the same time, and when that happens, the whole concept of duality shuts down, which is amazing. I think she's coming back online right now, hopefully. We lost you there for a bit. Are you coming back to us? We've got silence. Uh, while she's reconnecting, and I hope this will reconnect here in a minute, does anybody have any questions in the chat? I know we've got some viewers on here, and if anyone has any questions that they have for Julia, please feel free to shout them out. That'd be fantastic. And I would love for nothing more to hear that other people have had any experiences where they've seen their life go from being kind of thinking themselves one way to thinking themselves two ways. In the comments, feel free to join somebody there. Okay, you're back, darling. That's okay. We lost you, but you are back.
I am so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Connections. I'm so used to technical glitches at this point in time. It's not even funny anymore.
Yeah.
I was saying how much I noted what you were talking about was really the collapse of duality and seeing yourself from two perspectives at the same time and bringing yourself into a place of wholeness through that process. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that or the next phases that you went through?
Well, about that, that's something that's been immensely helpful to me in that process. Just because we often are, I think I'm not the only one experiencing inner conflicts like this. Um, for example, being a certain way and wanting to be in other, some other way in order to be acceptable, or in order to, I don't know, sometimes the beliefs you have about who you should be don't really align with who you are, or vice versa. So I think it's very helpful to admit to ourselves that two things can be true at the same time. And so, yes, that's something that's been helping me, because most of the times when I feel like I'm at war with myself, it's because of a belief that I have that I'm not adequate. And I think that towards becoming a more whole version of yourself, then it's helpful to embrace the fact that, yeah, you can be two things or more things at the same time, and it's not mutually exclusive.
Yes, I love that because it's embracing your vulnerabilities and your flaws and seeing the good side of you at the same time. You know, like I might be nervous to do something, but I'm capable of doing it at the same time. Both of
Yeah.
those things are true, and that's fantastic. And we will continue to face those challenges, not just through our awakening, but through the rest of our lives of understanding that every time we have a moment of doubt about something, it's okay. Like let's look at where there's a division and bring that division back together into oneness.
Hmm.
So that's beautiful. Thank you for that. Tell us more about some of the phases that you've seen yourself going through over the last few years.
Okay, so there was that conflict phase. There was also doubt, lots of doubt, because, like I said, I need to understand things. And if there's something that you cannot understand, it's a spiritual experience. So I've been doubting a lot along that journey. Is what I'm going through valid? Because there's no scientific explanation to the stuff I'm experiencing. Um, I'm thinking, okay, one example I can share is mental illness issues versus a spiritual experience. Sometimes it can be hard to tell one from the other. I do believe, okay, I'm a person who struggles with some mental health issues, and I definitely think that there is such a thing as mental illness. And at the same time, there are things that you experience when you're going through a spiritual experience that sometimes can look very much like mental illness. So that's one example, but there's other examples, other situations similar to this one. So it's very easy to doubt that your experience is valid because the way you understand the world is no longer applies, is no longer relevant. So that situation with that person I was talking about earlier, I'm pretty sure I'm not delusional or otherwise. I don't act crazy, but this situation is crazy. So have I gone crazy? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, I know what you mean.
How come I am generally very, I don't know how to explain this one. I'm sorry. I might be at a loss for words. Uh, anyway, doubt was a very big and it still is at times. I still go back and forth. Sometimes the next phase would be, I think, acceptance. You kind of get to a point where you accept that you're going through some weird ass shit. And am I allowed to talk that way?
Of course, yes. Yes.
And so yeah, conflict, doubt, acceptance, and it kind of feels sometimes like it's a cycle, because
Yes.
once I think I have it together, and I kind of, okay, I think I'm beginning to have a, I'm getting to get the knack of it, then yeah, no. It doesn't work anymore. So you're back into doubt, or uh, you're at war with another part of you again, and you thought, oh my god, I thought that was healed, I thought that I healed that thing, and looks like I didn't. The fact is, healing, or spiritual work, or however you want to call it, it's I know it's a cliche, but it's not linear. Sometimes we feel like we must get to that point, and and it's done, and we're done with it, and we just go on with our lives, and we're better, and we've healed that. No, it's sometimes you feel vulnerability again, sometimes things get raw again, um, and sometimes you go from acceptance to, okay, no, yeah, I don't like this, I don't want this anymore. So it's really, to me at least, it's very much of a cycle rather than set phases.
Yes.
um, I just
I
get,
like I want to just say something in regards to doubt, because even today, this morning, I had somebody else who's also on the journey. And she's like, I'm full of so much doubt. And I said to her, and I'm going to say to everyone else out there, because I think it's relevant, is that if you don't experience doubt on this journey, then you're not on this journey. Having doubt is like a signal for sure that you're definitely on this journey, because if you're coming from a place of absolutes, then you're in ego,
yeah,
because ego knows things to be absolute, but soul and spirit that's trying to, clear ego out is full of what is happening. This is so confusing, and
yes,
it's about relying on what is not tangible, as you've said. So how can you not have doubt? There is
yeah.
no, it's not that you can hold anything in your hand and say, look, this is the proof.
That's the thing. Talking about duality again, you need doubt. It's a good sign to have doubt. I think it's very healthy to doubt. At the same time, at a certain point, you also need faith. So I think it's a balance between a, a healthy amount of doubt and also faith. But it's not simple. There's nothing
No, it's
simple
not
in this.
simple. From my perspective, that I've been challenged with faith all along this journey, and I've turned to you many times, because your faith is so solid. And how have you cultivated? Because you said, you had this come to Jesus moment, and then from there, you're one of the most solid in faith people that I know. You do have a really a great capacity to trust in Jesus and higher spirit, that everything is okay. How have you managed that?
I have no idea. I okay. I don't think that there's one answer to this. I think it's several factors. First of all, I've got my faith community. I'm lucky enough to have an amazing pastor. Um, and I think we underestimate the power of the community at times. When I'm talking about a community, I'm talking about my personal Christian community, but also um, in a larger. Okay, I'm having brain fog again. Frenchy no speaks English anymore.
In the larger community,
Yes,
you're good.
yes. Uh, I also mean the spiritual community, because obviously not everybody is a Christian, so it's not going to resonate with everyone. But with the community, it's extremely important to have a spiritual community being there for you, but also it's important that you are a part of that community as well, because you take from the community, but you also have to give back. So I think that being a part of a community is a huge part, because when your faith gets weaker, when it starts to dwindle a bit, then you've got others people's faith to support you in those times. And also, you got to take comfort in the fact that even Jesus has his moments of doubts. Mother Teresa had her moments of doubts. Saint John of the Cross, who came up with the term "dark night of the soul," which is a familiar term to most of people on a spiritual path. All those people experience doubts in their life. So if Jesus had that moment, then maybe it's okay that I have mine. But yeah, in moments when my faith, when I'm struggling with my faith, then I find great strength in my community. What else? At the end of the day, faith is something that you faith is continuing to believe even though you cannot see anything, you don't have proof of anything. And it's normal to have moments where your faith ebbs and flow, and in those moments you don't make a big deal out of it, you just reach out to your community. I think that's the thing that's helped me the most.
Thank you. That's excellent and very useful.
I want to add also, I've talked about my pastor and Christian community, but I want to emphasize the fact that Soul Tribe is also my community. So it's not just about religion, it's also the rare people, the Soul Tribe. I mean, I include them in the community.
Absolutely. I think community is whoever you resonate with. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, because it could, whatever faith you come from or background you come from, it could be a Jewish community, it could be a Christian community, it could be AA. We had last week, Alexandra talking about her community being AA, Soul Tribe as another community. Group on Facebook could be your community. Wherever you're finding peace and comfort and being seen and understood is really your community.
Yeah.
Next question I have is, what would you say are some of the greatest challenges that you have faced along your awakening path?
There were many. My need to understand everything has made it difficult at times. The lack of proof as my mind want to kick and scream sometimes. There are some elements in that I want to express this the right way. Just give me a moment. I have gaslit myself a lot because my experience didn't really align with what I believed was acceptable. An example would be, I used to judge a lot new agey thoughts. Whenever it's too new agey, too esoteric, it kind of annoys me and rubs me the wrong way. And so that's been a challenge for me. That's been a challenge. Also, undoing all that baggage I had that has to do with religion sometimes felt uncomfortable. Am I going to be judged? Because let's face it, I don't want to offend anyone, but sometimes newborn Christians aren't exactly people you want to relate to. Was that polite?
Yes, that was very
I didn't want to be, because I have that desire of belonging.
Yes.
you know?
I think
And
what you're describing on both sides of it, whether it be from a Christian point of view or New Age point of view, is the extremism in ideas. I
yeah,
think you're trying to express that extreme thoughts that minimize inclusivity, you have a little bit of a problem with.
there's a lot of things I have problems with. Yeah, yeah, it's true. You got that right. But yeah,
Well,
that
yes,
was,
because one approach, can be very much, if you don't do it my way, then you're not doing it correctly.
yeah,
And that can be seen on both sides of the camps. You can see people from a Christian point of view that can be very much, if you're not following this specific doctrine, then you're not doing it correctly. And on
yeah.
the opposite side, you can see a lot of new agers, very in if you're not in high vibes only, if you're not manifesting, then you're not doing it correctly. So there
Yeah,
is this underlying judgment
yeah,
that can come on either side of the perspective.
yeah.
Both,
And
both, there's still an ego almost attached.
absolutely. And I'm not beyond judging. you know, sometimes I'm trying my best to be as much of a loving person as I can be, and I'm trying my best not to judge, and I'm being my best to follow the teachings of Jesus. But I'm failing miserably at it, as we all do. We're not perfect. We fail, um, and I felt the need to apologize on behalf of Christianity. Sometimes I felt the need to apologize or justify myself just because I'm a Christian. Because um, I've told you that already, but I'm big about social justice and inclusivity, and in certain Christian circles there is a lot of cherry picking when it comes to the teachings. So everybody agrees to say that the number one teaching of Jesus is to love your neighbor, but lots of Christian people are good, and you know, um, some people probably think I'm going to burst into flames if I set foot in a church because of what I'm saying, but you cannot love your neighbor just when your neighbor is like you or thinks like you or looks like you. You don't get to exclude your neighbor because you read this or that or the other. This is Jesus' table, it's not yours. And there is so much hate, I'm going to dare saying hate, that comes from fundamentalism. And okay, I don't want to go to that rabbit hole. I'm not sure I should go there. But I just want to say it's been a challenge for me to come to terms with the fact that I'm a Christian, because I don't want people to think that I'm that kind of Christian, and see, I'm judging too. So it's very complicated. Um, that was a challenge. Also, what was a challenge was, at times, am I going through clinical depression or is this dark night of the soul? Because I'm a person who struggles with depression and anxiety, and dark night of the soul is a thing, but so is clinical depression. So at times it's been tricky to tell which one's which. And I'm pretty sure I've experienced both at some point, both depression and both a very, very dark phase, which I believe had spiritual roots.
Yes.
So that's,
How have you been able in your own mind to reconcile the two, to bring it together into like a peaceful acceptance of, well, maybe like I'm loving how you're kind of bridging You're creating two bridges. You're creating a bridge between religion and spirituality. You're also creating a bridge between psychological perspective and spirituality. How have you been able to do that in your own life that's created a sense of peace?
Good question. I assume that it's another situation where there's not only one answer, but many answers. I have been lucky enough to have an extraordinary team, a clinical team to assist me. I am blessed enough to I'm so blessed. I'm lucky. I have access to art therapy, which is helping me tremendously. So I've been very lucky in terms of treatment. I'm talking about mental illness, and I've been also blessed with um, some amazing souls to assist me on this journey. Um, so both played a part. My doctor, for example, is very much aware of the importance of spirituality when it comes to recovery, healing. So I think it's all of that. It's important to get treatment if you're sick, but you've also got some spiritual needs which needs to be addressed. So it's always a matter of looking at the situation as a whole. Um, and in the end, yeah, sometimes it's been challenging. Is this spiritual or is this the illness? Because I've got both at sometimes. And in the end, I think it's not that important to actually tell one from the other. I think that the most important thing is to trust my experience. What I'm going through is real. And so what can I do about it? You know?
I love how you are taking your whole philosophy of inclusivity to not only talk about how you live your life and view things, but it's also how you are bringing into your life practical solutions because you're not excluding any camp and saying, no, I'm only going to take answers from a spiritual community, or I'm only going to take answers from a Christian side of things. You're like, I'm going to take a little bit of this, I'm going to take a little bit of this one, I'm going to take a little, and together, collectively, I'm getting help from every single angle.
Yeah. And that's tremendously helpful because at the end of the day, each and every single approach has its shortcomings. We can't explain everything with science. It's not possible to explain everything, but at the same time, there are things that it does well, and so you should, I think, take advantage of that. And likewise, because see, I've seen some very very harmful information from new agey um, um, people. I'm not going to name names, but sometimes very known authors and experts in spirituality. I've heard some of those people, very well known people, giving advice that is absolutely damaging to people. Um, Comes to mind. I was reading a lot about OCD at some point, and there was a guy suffering. Clearly, was suffering from OCD. I understand. Well, I live with OCD, so I know what it is. I know. I don't know OCD as a whole, but I know my experience with OCD, and I know it to be real. And so that person was asking for advice to that very well known author and columnist, and um, the answer that she clearly she didn't have a fucking clue about mental health, and she still gave advice. And just because she's regarded as that huge expert on any, um, I was devastated reading that answer. And so, yeah, you've got very very harmful beliefs in the new age community. But then again, lots of people have been wronged in the medical community from the medical field, and they no longer trust in um, modern medicine, which is a shame because you cannot just you can't You can conclude that something is wrong, 100% wrong, just because you've had a shitty experience with it. It's nonsensical. Every single approach has its benefits and, you know, its flaws, I think.
I absolutely love the message that you're bringing to everybody right now. I really do, because I can say that, I myself have been very leery of, the medical side of things. I felt really let down and failed because of it. But, you have always reminded me on my journey, they're not all like that. Not all people are going to be having, be not be able to offer you. And it
Yeah.
was, with your guidance, I did get and went ahead with getting counseling myself, that from somebody outside of the spiritual community. Because when we isolate ourselves into a bubble, we're not creating unity. We're doing the opposite of creating unity. We're creating conflict, and we're creating black and white thinking, and yet my way is better than your way, and this and that. And the whole point of this awakening is to come and bring people back into unity and understanding of other approaches. So I'm loving the advice that you're bringing into people today. Thank you for that. My next question is, what would you describe as some of your greatest blessings that you have experienced because of this awakening?
I'm smiling because the blessings I had were mostly blessings in disguise. See, um, I had very few blessings that were obviously blessings at first. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Um, so one blessing in disguise was um, a much higher capacity to love. A much, much higher capacity to love. But in order for me to get there, I needed to have my heart utterly destroyed. So it at first it felt like utter destruction. The trauma I've endured, all the heartbreak, all the pain, all the suffering. There was a lot of suffering, and so now I can, looking back, I'm at a place where I can say, oh my God, I did not know my heart could contain that much love. So that's a blessing, but it didn't feel like a blessing at first. See? And all the other blessings, for example, last year was crazy in terms of loss. Um, I've lost my cat, who was like my baby, because I don't have any children. I might get emotional. Um, oh, I think I'm gonna cry live. Okay, let's cry. So yeah, my Madam Shikiri was like my little baby, and I lost her. I lost someone who was extremely important to me. Possibly the Yeah. Okay, let's not go into detail. Yeah, I've lost friendships. I've lost um, I, lots of loss. Let's not detail each and every one of them, but I've lost lots of things, and most of the time I'm able to see now that those losses were actually blessings in disguise as well. Um, some friendships didn't survive this year. Um, some people I have let go. Some people have let me go. Some people whom I loved very much and who loved me very much had to move back in their home country. So I've lost many things, many people, but I'd say 98%, 98.4% of those losses were actually blessings in disguise. There were relationships or friendships that I had outgrown and couldn't let go of. Um, am I getting too personal? Because
No, you're good.
um, yeah, I'm thinking about things that no longer serve me, some things I'm still afraid to let go, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I know those things, when I lose them, are going to be huge blessings as well. So, and the soul tribe is another huge blessing, because friendships that ended and people that went made room for new and better people. So that's also a huge blessing.
Yes,
And
when we let go, we make space for the new.
so those are the blessings I can think of right off the bat, but there's probably many more. It's just that sometimes you realize that in retrospect. Oh, that thing that I thought was going to kill me, in the end, it was a good thing, but it takes time. It takes time.
Yes. Definitely time to grieve the losses and grieve the in-between space of when there's nothing. There's a moment in between when you lose something and something is replaced, and that's a difficult moment for people.
Yeah.
What would you describe as being the most useful tools and techniques that you've used throughout your awakening?
Prayers is probably the most important one. Praying. And I know the term is going to maybe irk a lot of people, but I think I'm going to explain how I understand praying. I don't think that praying is reciting stuff that you've learned by heart. Um, the Or Father, for example, or I have a limited knowledge of other religions, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that all of them have some prayers that you learn by heart. And I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong about it, but because it might resonate with other people. But me, the way I pray is, to me, praying is getting in touch with, for me, it's Jesus. For you, it might be God, Spirit. I don't know how you call them, but to me, it's Jesus. To me, praying is just get in touch with Jesus. That's all. So sometimes there aren't any words. Sometimes I just fall asleep and I'm so defeated, exhausted, and so disheartened. And I don't even have words anymore. And I'm still praying because I'm just like, without any words, I'm just giving it all to Jesus, and I just fall asleep, you know, being helped by Jesus. And that's praying to me. Um,
Yes.
it doesn't need words. And sometimes you scream it, sometimes you kick and scream and you swear, and it's not always pretty praying. Sometimes it's getting angry, you know, as long as you care enough to share with God whatever you're going through, then I think it's praying, to me at least. That's the way I understand it. So praying to me is a biggie. It's also praying for other people. I think focusing on things outside of yourself, take a little distance from yourself at times. It's also a good thing, I think. So praying, grounding, and meditation is also very helpful to me. And I'm reminding myself as I'm saying that, because I don't do it nearly enough. Meditation does me a lot of good, and I don't do it nearly enough. I need to remind myself, and I need to make time for it. But I'm trying. Like, it's such a balancing act. I'm trying to do everything right, and there's so many things I need. You can do in order to get well. Um, but yeah, grounding and meditation is a biggie. And also what's helpful to me, so sometimes a very powerful tool is to stop doing things. Sometimes the most useful thing you can do is to stop doing things and just be, especially when sometimes I also need a little distance from everything spiritual, which might seem maybe a little um counterintuitive. But you cannot be the same way you cannot be working 24/7 without going insane. You cannot do fucking shadow work 24/7 for 8 months without going insane. At some point you've got to let go and just go watch a movie or read a book or pet your cat or do something that feeds your soul, or just go stare, just go stare at trees or a waterfall. Um, so sometimes, yes, I think it's good to be in action, but at times the most loving thing to do for yourself is to just stop trying and just chill.
I love that because even in your advice now, the tools that you're talking about, you're about creating that mid ground, that midpoint of balance, and I think that's huge. You've brought me back to balance many times throughout my own awakening because I'm very do. I'm very action oriented, and you're like, chill, just chill out. You've
Well,
told me many times to chill the fuck out, and I'm like, okay, okay.
yeah, just fucking chill is my motto. But yeah, and I strive for that balance, but I'm very bad at balance. I'm saying things. Guess how I know why balance is important is because I've had very, very unbalanced moments, and I still tend to balance is a hard thing for me to achieve. But when I pull it off, it goes better. I don't pretend I'm doing it right all the time. I certainly don't. I try to have a balanced approach on things, but it's hard. It's not easy.
Oh, absolutely. It's not easy. It's walking a tightrope, and it's something that it's a daily practice. It's not something I think anybody ever masters it, unless maybe you're the Dalai Lama, but
Yeah, no, no.
what advice would you give anyone that would just got their wake up call?
What advice? Don't isolate. Don't isolate. Needing solitude is fine. Needing to be alone is fine. I'm in a hermit kind of moment myself. So it's just important to be able to tell solitude from isolation. And I think it's being alone, being on your own, spending time to recharge is sometimes very much needed, but it's important to be careful not to isolate oneself, because then again, I've told many times, I've talked about community, but I want to emphasize the fact that your community is unbelievably helpful in times of struggle. This is where you get your strength when you feel like your strength is gone. So my advice would be to try to reach out to people, like-minded people. That's another thing. That's another advice I would have for someone going through it. I would also advise them to pick their people, because um, you don't want to overshare with people who might not be very welcoming to you or understanding of what you're going through, because sometimes people are not going to understand, but they're still going to be understanding. See, not everyone has to be a super spiritual warrior in order for them to be there for you. But if they're going to mock you or your beliefs, then it might be best to protect yourself and not go to them in the first place. So I think it's important to pick your people and choose wisely. Choose your people wisely. That's one thing I would say. And the last thing, and I think, weirdly enough, I think it's the most important thing, the most important advice I would have is trust your experience, because invalidation is so harmful and unfortunately way too common. Your experience is valid. What you're going through is valid. Sometimes it's going to feel weird as shit. Sometimes it's going to feel abnormal. All of those things. But your experience is still valid, even though it's not a mainstream experience, even though it's an experience that might, you know, um, not make any sense. None of those things make sense sometimes, and it's still happening to you. So trust that your experience is valid. Don't gaslight yourself. Don't let anybody else gaslight you. And treat yourself with the respect and the kindness you deserve, and willingly give other people all the time.
Thank you. I think those all of that is very useful information. It's a balancing act as well between isolation and solitude, as well as in that codependence for me in my journey, because I've had to learn how to be in solitude as opposed to being too dependent on others for validation, for support, and learning that, okay, no, I just need to be alone for a while, because it's like you're on one side of it, you fall too far into isolation. On the other side of it, you fall into codependency, and somewhere in the middle, you find solitude.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts you want to share with us?
Can you guide me a little? I'm not sure what else would be relevant.
Well, anything that you felt, I just kind of leaving that question totally open to you to just say, hey, this was my awakening, and I don't know, just wrap it up for us in one way, shape, or form.
Okay, well, yeah, that was my experience, and it was a little hard for me to share it. Also, because I'm doing this interview in my second language, which sometimes is a bit challenging. I hope. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank people who took the time to listen so far, and I hope that there's something that some way I could be helpful to them. If I hope that maybe some people who are going through a rough awakening feel a little bit less alone now. And sending huge love to anybody who's watching this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. Thank you so much. I think there is so many jam-packed golden nuggets in tonight's interview. I'm so grateful that Julia joined us today. If you have questions for her, feel free to put them into the comments later on, and I can be sure to pass them on to her. And to everybody out there, we are sending you my absolute love, and Julia's love as well. If you would like to be a guest on You Talk to share your story of your awakening, and because the more we get information out, the more we normalize the experience for everyone else that's going through it. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can get in touch with me via my email at justbeing@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with me on my Facebook profile, or join the Spiritual Warriors support group over there on Facebook, and drop me a line in the chat. Any of those ways, and we'll set up an appointment to have an interview and discuss what happens on this. And I look forward to talking to you. With that all said, peace out. Bye.